Well, joining us in our Abuja studio is a policy analyst and group CEO, Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Veronica and Kemi.
Good morning. Good morning. Now, let's begin with what happened yesterday, the drama that ensued at the Senate, the Red Chamber, when we saw former Minister for State, Festus Keyamo, who, when a point of order was raised by Senator Nwokocha with regards to his conduct towards the Ninth Assembly. I wonder what you make of what transpired, how it is that the Senate, through Senator Nwokocha, had to put him on the spot for how his attitude to the Ninth Assembly and trying to bring him to question, to hold him accountable for what he did at the time.
It was a very interesting development yesterday at the Senate. I see it as part of the evolution of our polity. Indeed, in the past years, there has been a degeneration of regard and respect, for the National Assembly by members of the executive who hitherto will come and seek for clearance as presented by presidents. And I think it culminated to what happened yesterday. I think what the Senate did yesterday to assert themselves and send a clear message to everybody that they remain a key arm of government and the provision of the Constitution, Section 88 and 89 of the 1999 Constitution, that Mr. Festus Keyamo, SAN, and others keep on, throwing under the carpet, are sacrosanct and very, very important in the, execution of the duty of the legislation. Also, that, has become a learning point for everybody that whatever you are doing, will be on record, and that people that aspire or are holding position of responsibility should be ready to be accountable, and that they should be measured, and guarded in their actions in personal life and even in office moving forward. And I think that is the lesson they take out for Mr. Festus Keyamo, SAN, and indeed for every one of us, moving forward. And the Senate has sent the message, and I'm sure Mr. Festus Keyamo and every other person that is in this cabinet or in this government will know that moving forward, the National Assembly will be more serious with regards to these issues.
And another nominee was, basically haunted by his past comments on social media. We also saw that play out, and eventually an apology came from that individual, Dr. Bosun Tijani. What lessons do you draw from it? When you look at the protection social media, or the seeming protection social media gives one, and when you have to defend them in person.
Thank you for asking me that question. Very important. I heard the excuses given by senators that are trying to manage, obviously, the situation. But the fact is that, like I said earlier, this is a lesson for all of us to be guided, and measured in the way and manner we speak and we behave. I heard some excuses about someone being a youth, Mr. Bosun being a youth and angry when he responded. In another climb, that is enough reason to disqualify someone that is going to hold one of the highest offices of the land. You need to demonstrate, high sense of, responsibility, and you must have a large appetite, to manage, your sensitivities and your sentiments. And that is one of the key qualities of a leader. Moving forward, I hope and pray that the likes of Mr. Bosun and all of us will understand that whatever you do today or whatever actions you want to take today, especially in this time of social media, you should be circumspect, because it will be ingrained and imprinted in the social media, records, and even in the polity, in the society. We are growing and we are evolving, so we should be guided with our tongue. Another lesson is the lesson of political maturity and dexterity of Mr. President. People will say, a lot of you and cry about nominating people like Dr. Bosun. But to be honest, to be fair to Dr. Bosun, if you look at this cabinet, it has more than one Mr. Bosun that has taken this kind of positions, maybe against Mr. President. Or Mr. President is saying, you know what, it's about national development, it's about looking forward, it's about the value you will bring to the table. And if you're on the other side calling us names or saying this, let's see what you have to offer, let's see what you can do. Being able to rise above the board and work with people that hitherto takes this position demonstrate a kind of political maturity of the current president. Of course, it is also not new. We see it in other countries, in other climes, where people that have taken hitherto combatant or antagonistic position are coming to play. The likes of Ben Carson during the build-up to the emergence of Trump as the candidate for Republican Party ended up becoming, a Secretary of Housing and Urban Development during his time. We can go on and on. So the good thing is Nigerian political, we are evolving as a polity. Our politics is becoming more mature. And I'm happy that Mr. President is able to look above those differences to see how we can all work together for a better Nigeria.
Now, you said that the Senate is sending a message. I am wondering how potent this message is, because we see that some persons were asked to perhaps just sing the national anthem. Some persons were just allowed to walk through, and there wasn't much grilling of these persons as Nigerians would expect. So how potent is the message being passed here with a few persons, which some have said is a matter of personal vendetta, that we are seeing?
Well, I will agree with you to a certain extent, but again, it depends how you see the cup, half full or half empty. But importantly, I totally agree, to be honest, that the process could have been better. We expected more substance and content, with regards to the kind of questions asked and the span of, grilling. I would have expected something better, so that Nigerians will really know that we are getting the kind of quality Mr. President has seen in these people. But importantly, Kemi and Veronica, the process should be given the kind of seriousness it deserves. In my own opinion, you see banters being thrown around every now and then, and you see, herd mentality to be able to ensure that our person, quote and unquote, just goes in there, whether because he's representing or she's representing a state or some political interest. With due respect, anybody that has been nominated by the president, we believe, has gone through, critical hurdles of consideration. But the legislature should do better moving forward to earn more respect for themselves, for these people that they are screening. Because if you look at it from another perspective, maybe that is why when they become the ministers, they don't really take it serious. They don't really give them that substance. Because after all, they just came and threw banters and took a bow and go. And from other perspective, people will see it as being personal. I will advise that moving forward, there should be templates that will be given to the Senate, rating and criteria for evaluation of this potential, key critical drivers of our sectors. To say this is the standard template for everybody that is going to ask questions about character, around competence, around capacity, around disposition and temperament, and things like that. And those are the kind of questions I expect to see, the legislators asking, potential ministers, so that we'll know that we are going to have, one, people that have the capacity, people that have the competence, people that have the integrity, and importantly also people that have the temperament and respect, not just for the legislature, but for Nigerians. Because you see ministers that become haughty and arrogant and speak to Nigerians with sense of entitlement after they become ministers, even over and above the way the president may be coming across, which is in parallel to what the president, is seeing or thinking or doing. So, to be honest, the process should be better. It's a bit better than the 9th Assembly. We hope it will be more robust, more better, and more serious, subsequently.
In terms of assertiveness of the Senate, as we've seen, or in line with what you may have seen in the screening process, so how did they fare in the final outcome of the screening by, excluding the likes of Mr. Elrufai, Dan Ladi, and Mrs. Okotite?
About the nominees or the Senate?
The non-inclusion of, the three persons who weren't, confirmed by the Senate yesterday, in terms of assertiveness of the Senate in their roles, how did they fare in the outcome of the screening?
Well, the assertiveness, if you look at the three nominees whose clearance is pending based on security, recommendation, that is not, a Senate thing. It is from what we gather from the DSS and the National Security Advisor's opinion, or position or report, as the case may be. But when we look at assertiveness, like I said, it could be better. I wanted to see, first of all, on the faces and the action of the legislators, more seriousness. You see milling around, you see people throwing banters when the process is going on, until maybe when a candidate that tickles their fancy or interest, they pay attention. Of course, in some very key cases, like the likes of Mr. Wale Edun, the likes of Mr. Dele Alake, the likes of Mr. Latif Fagbemi, SAN, the likes of Ali Pate, Professor, that have actually, held the Senate spellbound with the quality of their deliverance. I would like to see more moving forward so that it will be more serious. And like I said, the best way to do that, if you have a standard operating procedure, for the National Assembly, in this case I'm proposing for the Senate, maybe in their order paper or whatever, or their rule book, to say, when we are evaluating, nominees, this is the standard. This is the criteria. So everybody is guided, but it appears it's a free-for-all. So people are just asking out of their whims and caprices, and sometimes taken away by emotions or sentiments. I think if they have a standard moving forward within their rule book, that will guide everybody moving forward. In fairness to the process, I don't see any standard template that is guiding them with regards to what to ask and how to come across. So it could be better moving forward. But by and large, if you ask me to rate them on a scale of 0 to 100, I will give them a 65.
Now, there's a question of security clearance for persons like former Governor of Kaduna State, Elrufai, petitions pending against him, as well as Stella Okotete from Delta State. And for the other person we hear, that is extant Supreme Court bearing Danladi from holding public offices. I would like to understand how this constitutes a security matter, such that they are not being cleared at this point.
Security clearance is a critical requirement to clear people to hold public office. And to that extent, it is a key consideration, not just in Nigeria, any other place. I mean, if we do security clearance, even in the private sector, at lower cadre, with due respect to all entities, you can understand why security clearance is very critical for such highly esteemed public office. So it is very important so that we don't have people that are in the cabinet that will become either baggages from the point of view of security or compromise our national security. I don't know the content, of the reports, but whatever it is very important. That is why they presented the report to the Senate, and I'm sure Mr. President has that report, which will be considered, so that when people go in there, we are sure that when they close that door of the Federal Executive Council, or when they are having their engagement in the kitchen cabinet, or when they are executing their functions, we have people that everybody will know largely, except for 1 or 2 times when you cannot take away the margin of error. You have people that Mr. President can turn back and say he is working with a team that, have his back, just like he has their back. So security clearance is even important over and above every other consideration. However, we should note that sometimes some of these, red flags or amber flags come up during the process. So possibly there's a first layer of security clearance, which I believe almost all the nominees have passed. And then during the process, issues will precipitate that will require another layer of evaluation or review that will now, make the relevant agencies to take a very strong position, which is very okay. What matters is at the right time, right decisions are taken in the overall interest of Nigeria.
The most prominent, according to, Nigerians' observations of these, individuals would be the former governor, Elrufai. Of course, many are mindful, or many saw how the issue of the violence in southern Kaduna weighed heavily during his 2 terms as governor. And that also forms the crux, from what we know, on the petition that we understand was filed against him. But now that we understand that it's before, and you've said to that effect, it's before the DSS, how do you, do like a post-mortem, so to speak, of, Governor Elrufai, the former Governor Elrufai's legacy in that regard, in terms of, as the senator asked, in terms of unity and cohesiveness? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, my thoughts is that, like I said in my opening remarks and subsequently, not just in the case of Elrufai, we should be circumspect, measured, and guarded in our actions, in our statements, and even in our inactions. Very important, especially for people that are holding very critical, sensitive offices. In the case of Malam Nasir Elrufai, I think there is a consensus that he is an excellent technocrat. He is a good leader in terms of delivery of and execution. But also there is a lot of, varying opinions with regards to this, how he succors or gravitates to the sensitivities and sensibilities of the people of Kaduna State, or even the larger society of Nigeria. And I think that is part of the thing that is coming back to haunt him in a way. And to that extent, all of us, starting from Malam Nasir Elrufai, we are all human. Nobody is perfect. But there are critical measures of people and persons as they evolve as personalities, as leaders. And that is what is going to be the learning point for everybody. Malam Nasir Elrufai most probably may be cleared. But what is important is to see that as we are growing till the day we die, we keep on improving who we are so that we can be better leaders, better mentors, and better people for ourselves and our family. I think that is the takeout from Elrufai, and to see that at any point in time, nobody is infallible. And that is why, to borrow from an African proverb that says, looking back, is part of, it helps you chart a better way forward in life. So it's very important, especially statements in a very highly polarized country, at a very highly polarized time in the history of Nigeria. It is very important that leaders, guard their tongues and act in a way and manner that will engender unity and cohesiveness of a nation, because they are leaders, and what they do, people watch, people gravitate towards, or, it becomes repulsive, to the unity of the country.
Now, 45 of these persons have been confirmed. I'm wondering what your message will be to this 45, talking about making their mark, writing their names in gold, making history, because except for a few persons at the last administration, a number of Nigerians say they don't remember certain ministers, except for a few of them. I wonder what you would want to see from this crop of ministers.
Thank you very much for that question. The new ministers should learn what one of the key failure factors of successive administration, in this case ministers, that have come and underperformed and gone down in history with all the negative records they have got, is their refusal to do what I call that looking back, as a way to chart their way forward and to learn from the past. That is actually what it means, for them to look back and learn from the past, that people will remember the good things you do and also the bad things you do. The question is, where do you want to stand, when you are, looked at in history, or when your name is recounted, or when your family, when people see your kids and your wife and families. That is very important. Most of them have made their marks in various areas of their endeavors, but this is another layer. And most of them, all of them, by virtue of coming forward, have submitted themselves to serve Nigeria. I want to see less sense of entitlement, which leaves most to be desired from what we saw in the in the previous administrations. People come into office begging to be appointed, and then when they come into office, they behave with a sense of entitlement, no sense of empathy, for the people that they are serving. I want to see a sense of service from these ministers. I don't want to see people haughty, arrogant, throwing everything to us as if we should take it. I want to see humility. I want to see service. Importantly, I want to see performance. Nigerians want to see performance from day one, because that is what will measure. Performance is measured by result, not by events. The events that culminated to the appointment have come from day one. Nigeria wants to see result. We are at a critical time in the history of this country. Mr. President has taken his neck out for most of these people. They need to prove their worth to Nigerians, prove their worth to Mr. President by delivering the mandate they are given in a transparent, accountable, and humble manner, so that they will be counted in history as part of the people that added value to the political evolution of Nigeria.
And in terms of achieving performance that you say, of course, it resonates, with what many people have said so far. What do you think the president can do in ensuring that his ministers, perform? Do you agree that there may be some form of, there may be a need for some form of, performance indicators, periodic appraisals? What do you think the government can do in ensuring that these people, no matter who you are, former governor or otherwise, performs?
I'm a student of the philosophy of what not be measured, cannot be done, or will not be done. Veronica and Kemi. If you don't measure performance and you don't put people on their toes, they become complacent, they become laid back. I reckon, from antecedent, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will upscale what he had done in Lagos in the past when he was governor by ensuring there's a performance management system in place. First of all, what it will do to the psyche of the ministers is, hey, this is not business as usual. However, we have seen the transactional, show kind of performance, presentations that happened during the immediate past administration. They will all come and self-appraise. And all of them will tell you they have done fantastically well. I will expect an objective, properly laid out performance measurement system and matrix that quarterly or however Mr. President will deem fit, he measures the performance of the ministers so that those that are not performing will know, and those that are performing will also know. And also the political will for Mr. President to take decision, whether one is a former governor or whatever position somebody has taken. This is a new mandate. And to see that people are placed on a flat plane, and if you don't deliver, Nigeria does not have the patience or the time to manage failures, because everybody has come to raise the hand and say, I am qualified, I can do it. So no excuses. And I'm sure Mr. President, I believe, is not a man that takes unnecessary excuses. I hope his appetite, that political will, the appetite of political will is still there and upscale to ensure that anybody that does not deliver within the shortest period of time will be sent out, and people that will deliver will be brought in. I want to see that objectivity regardless of creed, religion, or region. It is about Nigeria, and Nigerians have been patient. We want to see things moving forward. And of course, because the input of the ministers will be the output of Mr. President. I'm very sure Mr. President knows that. His performance is dependent on their performance. So I don't reckon that Mr. President will sit back and allow the team of 45 or 48, to mess up the legacy he wants to leave behind. I'm very optimistic about that, and I hope God will make it work.
Amen. And that's a fine place to leave the conversation. Thank you so much, Baba Yusuf, for your time on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me yet again, Veronica and Kemi. It's a pleasure.